So is the live action Pinocchio any good? Well, this is going to be my review of it here in this video. If you guys do enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more. Do a lot of reaction type videos here on the channel, some reviews and things like that of, movies, TV, sometimes comics, different things like that. Kind of like nerdy pop culture stuff. This is kind of like the place for me to nerd out, if you will. So yesterday evening at the time of recording this, which would have been the 9th of September. It's today, at the time of recording this, we are the 10th currently. I might be a little bit late. I think it came out on the 8th on Disney Plus. But anyways, the new Pinocchio dropped with Tom Hanks starring as Geppetto, and it's the live action Pinocchio on Disney Plus. Now, going into this, I was really worried because here's the thing. I feel like Disney is very hit or miss with their live action remakes, if you will. There's a few that I really loved, and there's a few where they were kind of in the middle that I'm like, ah man, it just kind of fell short for me. And then some where I was like, man, this is just really not doing it for me at all. And so I was really concerned because, again, they've been, for me personally, the track record's not great. You can let me know in the comments below if you like any of them, if you don't like all of them, if you are kind of mixed like me or what. But I was really worried. But going in, when it started off, it seemed pretty solid. The trailer looked good. We reacted to it here on the channel. It seemed pretty good. And I will say, kind of a spoiler alert for kind of, not a spoiler alert for the movie. We'll get into that. I'll tell you when that's going. But I mean, more of a spoiler alert for my review, final review. It was pretty good, honestly. It was actually pretty good. And it was quite enjoyable. I watched it with my wife and kids, and we all thought it was pretty solid. I mean, just kind of like the classic Pinocchio. There was like a mixture of emotions, right? There was elements where you were laughing out loud. There was moments where you were there was kind of darker elements. There was sad elements, things like that. But overall, it was pretty solid, and I will say that they nailed a lot of like the CG stuff, because a lot of the characters are CG, of course, right? Like Jiminy Cricket and of course Pinocchio, and I mean there's a lot of CG going on in here, right? The cat, which I can't remember the cat's name, I keep forgetting. I think it's like starts with an F. Oh goodness, what's the name? Anyways, and then the fish, the goldfish, they were all pretty much CG. Like I can only imagine, Tom Hanks probably really having to imagine acting, when he was doing his parts for this role. But anyways, it was really solid in that way as well. It didn't look kind of weird. I mean, again, some of the live actions, they've kind of the characters looked maybe a little bit strange to some extent. I think they were pretty solid personally. Like I said, at the end of the day, reviews are subjective. You got to keep that in mind. What I think might not be what you think, and vice versa, right? I could love it, you could hate it, or you could love it and I could hate it. It's just kind of mixed, right? As far as the plot and the main script, now again, I will go a little bit more into spoiler territory, and I'll warn you, but not yet. So to avoid spoilers, I'll keep it general and say that, I had to re-skim through the original Pinocchio. I didn't sit and watch the whole thing after, but after I finished watching the live action, I just kind of skimmed through it on Disney Plus to see, hey, how close was it? Because it's been a while since I'd watched the original. I grew up watching it. I loved it. It was, a favorite. Obviously, it's been a favorite of many people for a long time. And obviously the original, I mean, originals in general are always still the best in my opinion. But that said, this is a really good remake. And they stuck pretty close to the script from what I can tell. Like there was a few differences here and there. There's a few things that they kind of changed that were the changes. I feel like they made sense though. They kind of made I don't know, they made sense in the context. It's kind of hard to explain. You just kind of have to watch it. And, most of the changes made sense. I had one gripe, which was actually with the ending. So we're going to go kind of a little bit more into spoiler territory here. So if you guys do want to avoid spoilers, then, maybe right now is a good time to kind of, check out. I will say before you check out though, is that, to give you guys a little bit of a spoiler, I would give this in the 9 range, honestly. It's probably my top 3 favorite live action remakes. So I'll say that up front, and I'll reiterate that later on with the spoiler section. So we're going into spoiler territory. If you want to avoid it, then obviously click off the video and let me know what you think. Maybe come back once you've seen it. If you don't really mind, I mean, it's not really crazy if you've seen the original Pinocchio, but it might ruin a couple of the differences for you. So if you're still here, all right, here we go. So my biggest gripe is probably with the ending. Now, the ending, Jiminy Cricket kind of goes like, so something about, I forget, I'm really vaguely paraphrasing, but something about along the lines that basically, you know, did he actually turn into a real boy? Well, that's for you to kind of imagine. But what you do actually see that my wife pointed out, which I almost missed, was that at the very end, Geppetto and Pinocchio are walking away, and you actually do see that he starts turning into a real boy. But because they didn't, that's kind of where the movie ends. You don't actually really get to hear one of the most famous lines, which I think is like the one line that I've always said, you know, growing up, and you know, everybody kind of repeats. It's just kind of the line that sticks with you, which is, I'm a boy, I'm a real boy. You never got to hear that because they kind of cut it off kind of short, right? So it's kind of like after the crash from, you know, in the sea cave, once you know, they got spit out of the whale, which is another difference, by the way. Instead of going out the spout, whatever it's called, spout, right? They got spit out instead, which I think wasn't really a big deal. I don't really care about that part. But after that, after they escape the whale or the sea monster, whatever you want to call it, and they crash into the cave, there's like a little bit of a scene there, and then after that scene, they're walking out of the cave, and that's kind of where they cut it. So there's like this whole extra scene that's in the original that's not in the main movie. And honestly, if they would have included that one scene, I think it would have probably brought it up to like almost a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. But because they skipped out on that scene and that one famous line, they kind of pulled it back for me, kind of closer to like the lower 9s, in my opinion. Still a great movie, but that I don't think that was maybe necessarily the right choice to do that. I mean, I'm glad they still kind of showed, because they show like, you know, how the wooden arms and wooden legs start to kind of like shape into real skin from like a back view, and so you do see that. But so, you know, you do kind of, you know, it is insinuated that, hey, he did turn into a real boy. But again, you're cutting out one of the most famous lines ever and one of the most famous scenes ever, I think, you know, which is the grand ending, and kind of switching up the way it ends. And it's kind of funny because as we're going through it, I, you know, turned and I told my wife, I said, hey, this is pretty good so far, but it's going to depend how they nail the ending. And again, the ending was good for what it is, but I was a little bummed out that they switched it up the way they did. So that was kind of that. So overall, I think it was pretty solid. Like I said, there's a few subtle changes here and there, but I think it worked for the script. I think the biggest change that I had the biggest gripe with was that ending. But overall, I think Pinocchio himself, you know, looks great, especially like I said, the CG work was just amazing, especially with the cat, drawing a blank on its name, and the goldfish, also drawing a blank on its name, and Jiminy Cricket, and you know, the fox, and just like all the different kind of elements there. So again, I think they pulled it off great. I think it was a really good live action movie. I think it was one of their better ones. Personally, I think my favorite one to date is probably still Beauty and the Beast. I think Beauty and the Beast is just phenomenal. I think they did so good with that one. So that's kind of what I compare a lot of them to. That's my personal favorite. I mean, going way back, I'm also a pretty big fan of Alice in Wonderland, but I mean, I'm a little bit biased there because like I really love fantasy style stuff, and you know, Alice in Wonderland is super heavy on the fantasy side of things, and I'm a big fan of Johnny Depp. And oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank on her name. The actress that plays, man, I don't know why I'm forgetting her name right now. I should know what her name is, but anyways, the actress that plays in Harry Potter is Beatrix, and who plays the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. She's like, I call her like the female equivalent of Johnny Depp. Her and Johnny Depp are just like the craziest, you know, fantasy like actors. They're just so good. I love both of their roles. So I'm kind of biased in that sense, right? But I do love those, even though some people don't. But Beauty and the Beast, I think, is one of the best. I think, you know, coming in second would probably be, well, you know, if we're ignoring Alice in Wonderland, for example, my top 3 would have included maybe Aladdin, I think. It's not like my favorite, but I really do like the way, Will Smith, his version of Genie was in Aladdin. I think that was really well done, and I don't know. But Beauty and the Beast, I think, is like number 1. The other ones, I feel like there's a lot of disappointments. You know, Jungle Book, Lion King, which Lion King has always been like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I was kind of disappointed that, you know, they dropped the ball in certain areas there. So that's kind of, I'm just explaining that so you guys can get a feel of, you know, how I'm comparing everything and what my perspective on these live action movies are. Maybe that gives you an idea of whether my view on Pinocchio is what's the word I'm looking for, is I guess legitimate or not in your eyes anyways. Like I said, at the end of the day, it's all subjective, right? Everybody has a different view, different perspective, different tastes. So, you know, what I like, you might hate, and vice versa. But overall, I think it was solid. You know, I'd probably give it a solid like 9 to 9.5. You know, 9.5, that area out of 10. I think it was really well done. I'd have to watch it a couple more times to really say for sure. But as a first time watch, I think it was solid. I think they did solid. They did it some solid justice overall. And I enjoyed it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have you seen it? If you have, what would you say about it? Were you disappointed? Were you pleased with how they pulled it off? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Again, this is like the biggest timeless classic of all time, right? I mean, this is Pinocchio. This is like almost like the very, very beginning of it all. So I really love it, and it just kind of reminded me of how allegorical it is. Kind of reminds me of like the story of Pilgrim's Progress, kind of that mixed in with like the story of the prodigal son from the Bible. So I kind of really love those elements in there, especially, you know, the just like the plain obvious, you know, stark contrast of good and evil, moral and immoral, and just kind of that whole contrast, and what, you know, going down the route of immorality kind of leads to, as, you know, Pinocchio goes through that journey. So and then, you know, discovers that that's not a good route to go down. You know, again, it's very prodigal son like in ways. So I really love that about the story of Pinocchio, and I'm glad they preserved that in the live action. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Again, stick around for more content here on the channel, and I'll see you soon in another one. I still don't have an outro, so take care. I'll see you guys later.